Hey Masters, if you know me and you've been listening to my podcast, you know health and nutrition is number one. Check out AdvoCare products. I am a distributor. Go to livelongersmarter.com. We got everything you could imagine for your health and nutrition goals. If you're interested, at the end of the podcast, at the very end, there'll be more information on the products. Also, LandVoice is one of our sponsors. They have amazing services. If you need leads, please check out LandVoice for FSBO, expired, circle prospecting, a dialer, whatever you need. Go to davidihill.com, affiliates. You can click the LandVoice link and all of the special opportunities will be there.
Get ready for one more sale, inspiring you with ideas through powerful and engaging interviews with top performers of their field. Now, join us as we discuss techniques and strategies of the coolest and most successful people on the planet.
Most people get butterflies in their stomach. And I tell people the goal is not to get rid of those butterflies, but to get them to fly in formation. Most people think, oh, you have to know, like, and trust me. And I say, no, it's the opposite. You have to first trust them, like them, and then know you before they're going to get a yes.
Hey Masters, David Hill here with another episode of Path to Mastery. Hey, we got a little bit of a special episode this week because, we've been growing and I'm blessed, and, we've had to actually go into the archives for this interview because we have media companies, guys, reaching out to us and asking if we'll interview their client, which is a huge benefit. And, John Livesay is his name. They reached out to me probably like November last year. We did the interview and then it kind of got lost in the archives. And, I was going through and we got a lot of interviews we got to get out for you guys. But listen, this guy's phenomenal. He wrote a book called The Successful Pitch. No joke. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, CBS, ABC, as well as Fox. Best-selling book. I mean, the guy just really talks to us about preparing and putting together the best pitch we can. And, in sales, I like to think of it as our presentation, right? It's really about delivering the best presentation with confidence, helping people so that, what we're saying, it resonates. And one thing that he said on this interview that I really, really loved is, he really wants people saying, wow, tell me more about that. And I think that's great when someone, when you deliver something to someone and they're like, yeah, I want to know more. I talk to us about storytelling, how to become great at storytelling, because people relate to stories, right? You know that. People are going to relate to stories before they're going to relate to our presentation or our pitch. So how do you become a great storyteller? I would tell you, listen, this is probably one of the shortest interviews I've ever done. It's only like 16 minutes. Probably one of the best interviews I've done as well. And I'll tell you, if this is the best 16 minutes for developing your presentation or your pitch that I think I know of. So listen to this, guys. Please share it. Hey, do me a favor if you would. Please give us a review on Apple. Subscribe. Then you don't have to worry about the podcast. It automatically shows up in your inbox. And just keep us in mind for referrals. Central Massachusetts. Our goal is really to make sure your clients who you send us say these guys did a great job for us, and they really did a great job. And if that happens, then that's our goal. So, hey, listen, you guys rock. Enough out of me. Enjoy the interview. Hey Masters, welcome to Path to Mastery. Again, we're bringing you another episode of the best and no shortage of amazing salespeople. John Livesay is with us today. John was called the Pitch Whisperer by Inc. magazine. He also has a great book called The Successful Pitch, and he's just going to talk to us today about putting together an amazing pitch. So John, hey, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be with you, David.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you. And, fill in some of those gaps on your bio, if you would, for our listeners.
Sure. I've had a 20-year sales career. Most recently, I was at Condé Nast, where I won Salesperson of the Year across 400 other salespeople around the world, selling digital, print, and video ads across 23 brands, GQ, Wired, Vanity Fair, W, Arc Digest, etc. One of the jobs I had there was to find startups that they could use or help monetize There's some of the challenges they were facing with people not clicking on static banner ads, for example. And I found out that a lot of startups have no clue how to pitch themselves to get a customer, let alone how to pitch themselves to get funded. So I decided I'm going to help these tech people who are very left brain focused and talk about numbers and how something works, become storytellers, which is imagination, and that's where all the storytelling happens, and that's where all the selling happens.
Outstanding, my friend. And that's what sales is all about. So let's talk to us when you talk about a great pitch or the perfect pitch. Where does that start?
Well, it starts with being able to be clear, concise, and compelling. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to practice what you're going to say in your opening and in your closing. If you're giving a 10-minute pitch to get funded or a 10-minute pitch or a half hour to get a customer, you have to know what you're going to open with and what you're going to close with, and make sure that it's very easy to follow, because the confused mind always says no.
So you say clear, concise, and compelling. So how much time is somebody going to spend on that? Like, so what would be like a practice or a routine or a way to kind of make sure that's ready to be presented?
Well, everyone's different on how long it takes them to write it and then practice it. First, we work on the content, then we work on the delivery. And if there's visuals to go with it, we'll then have that as part of the assistance. But the key is your PowerPoint, your pitch deck, whatever you want to call it, should be something that assists you, not a crutch. But you have to sell yourself first. So, for example, people say to me, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm the pitch whisperer. I help people go from invisible to investable." And most people go, "That's interesting. I've never heard of that before. Tell me more." And that, David, is the whole key. You want people at a cocktail party or a networking event to say to you, "That's interesting. Tell me more." So if somebody says that, then I'll say, well, I help tech CEOs struggling with their investor pitch to become irresistible so they get their startup funded. And when that happens, their business takes off. Boom. So what I did there that's so key that your listeners can learn from is, who do you help and what problem do you solve? That's what you need to have in a crisp, concise, 90-second, ready to go at any time description of who you are and what you do, so that people can either start using you or start thinking of people they know that could be a referral. And
it also sounds, John, that like you're creating some curiosity when someone
Absolutely.
says, what do you do? And you're like, when they're like, oh, wow, I need to know more about that. So
that's it.
So let's talk about confidence as well. So where does confidence fall into this? I mean, we know as salespeople, confidence is going to be key, but let's talk about with in regards to the pitch.
Sure. Well, you have to be confident, but not arrogant. Arthur Ashe has a great quote. It says, the key to success is confidence, and the key to confidence is preparation. So hence, that's why I'm so big on making sure that everyone I work with prepares, because that's what gets your confidence up. Another technique I have is something I call stacking your moments of certainty. And all that simply means is I have you write down 4 or 5 times, David, when you knew you nailed it. You asked somebody out on a date, you knew you were going to get another date. You interviewed for a job, you knew you were going to get an offer. You remember all those times when you really felt positive, and you put that in your head before you go pitch, as opposed to all the negative self-talk, like, oh, they're never going to buy, we're too expensive. You don't let any of that go into your head before you walk in the door. So I did that with one of my clients, and Martin, and he said, wow, one of my moments of certainty is that I was born in South America, but my parents had me grow up in the Netherlands. And when I turned 18, they took me back to South America and dropped me off naked in the Amazon jungle to survive for 2 weeks, because in my culture, that's the rite of passage into manhood. I said, woo, well, that gives you goosebumps. And you know what? That's a story people are going to remember. And that's another takeaway. People remember your stories, not your numbers. So learn to be a storyteller so people remember what you said after you've left the room.
Absolutely. So talk about that. When you talk about becoming a storyteller, I mean, it's not, some people naturally are pretty good at it, and others, maybe it's a lot more work for them. So how does somebody become a great storyteller?
Well, first of all, it's just becoming aware that there's a structure to a good story. There's exposition, which is the who, what, where, when. Then there's the problem, usually some obstacle to overcome. Then there's the solution, and then the result of that solution. So going back to the Martin story, the exposition of who, what, where, when, he describes being naked in the Amazon jungle at 18, but when he would practice, sometimes he would forget to say that's a rite of passage in his culture. And I said, if you don't say that, it sounds like child abuse, right? So you need to paint the picture, get people in the story. Then the story continues with Martin, where I said, what lessons did you learn from being in the Amazon jungle? And he said, I learned to focus, pivot, and persevere. I said, great. And you're going to take those lessons from the Amazon jungle to the concrete jungle of being an entrepreneur. And when he got that down, he won a pitch contest and got funded because the investor said, we're going to put our money on the person that could survive the Amazon jungle. He'll figure out how to deal with any frustrations in his job or his business. So continuing that, so we got the exposition, the problem, he's naked in the jungle. The solution is he figures out 3 key life lessons. And then once he takes that, he takes it to the concrete jungle, he wins a pitch contest and gets funded. So that's the structure of a good story.
Makes sense to me, my friend. Obviously, you got to practice these stories, right? So
Yes.
I'm thinking of, I have a lot of followers on the real estate realm and insurance. And so one thing you talked about before is, almost using like positive affirmations, right? To affirm, things are going to go well, things are going to be positive. And now you're talking about the storytelling. So what do you role play those stories? Do you practice them with family members? How do you
You should definitely practice in front of people. You can start with friends and family, but I really encourage people to practice in front of strangers who are a set of fresh ears and will be honest with you about, oh, you lost me there, or I got confused, or it was too long, or you spoke too fast, whatever that is.
I heard a Tim Ferriss interview a while back, and he was talking about somebody who practiced his speech. He had to present a speech, so he kept doing it in front of his dog, and his dog was sitting there, and his dog seemed like super bored, and then when his dog was excited about it, then he knew he was ready to go. So interesting way to practice, right?
Well, it's a start. You definitely need human feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about culture, building a culture that attracts the right team.
Well, first of all, you have to decide what your culture is going to be. Because if you don't decide, then the culture sort of takes on its own meaning without any direction from you. And you have to decide what's important. What are the unwritten rules of working at this place? What are the values you have? What are the beliefs that support why you think those values are important? And express it to people. If you want people to come in at 9 o'clock, you got to tell people, because some of the millennials think they can just come in whenever unless they're told differently. So it's very important for people to understand what the culture is and what the expectations are.
Yeah, and I think some millennials even want to come in even when they are told what time they want to come in.
Yeah, well, then that's part of the culture is there's repercussions to that, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to follow through on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So creating your culture, so whatever your culture is, everybody that's part of your team is on the same page and understands the expectations of your culture.
And you're upfront in the interview process, right? You're like, this is how we roll here. And if this fits you, fine. If it doesn't, let us know now.
Absolutely.
You are listening to One More Sale.
So I want to go back to confidence, John. So you mentioned some strategies that will help increase confidence, or what are some secrets? What are some ways people can increase their confidence?
Well, the first one is prepare. The second one is stack those moments of certainty. The third one is most people get butterflies in their stomach. And I tell people the goal is not to get rid of those butterflies, but to get them to fly in formation. And what that means is you take that negative energy from your stomach, which is just your adrenaline telling you, oh, this is a big moment, right? This is your Super Bowl of meetings, if you will, your Olympic moment. So game on. And be fully present. So take that nervous energy out of your stomach and make a gesture with your hand, and it'll move out. And get the focus off of yourself and worrying about what other people think about you. Instead, focus on your intent of how you can help the audience or whatever it is you're pitching.
Interesting. And you mentioned make a gesture with your hand. Tell us about that.
Well, most people, especially if you're nervous, keep their hands in their pockets or sway from back and forth on their legs, and they don't get their energy out. And when you make a gesture, you're inclusive. You're, including the audience. Confident people make gestures and they walk and make a point with a room. They don't just stand in one place.
Got it. So creating energy, moving your body, all that good stuff.
Yes. Like an athlete, you warm up before the big event. So you're not just standing around all nervous with your stomach all in knots, I tell people take some deep breaths, visualize what you want to have happen, all of that. You control your body through your thoughts, not the other way around.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges where people are facing, your clients are facing, when it comes to delivering a pitch?
Well, the first part is they don't practice. The second part is they confuse people. And then the third part is they come across arrogant and not coachable. And, there's three unspoken questions that people have in their head when they listen to anybody pitch anything. The first one is, do I trust you? Which is a gut thing. And that's fight or flight response, right? If you don't feel safe, you run. That's why the handshake was created, to show you don't have a weapon in your hand. And then it moves up to the heart, which is, do I like you? And the best way to increase your likability is to show empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes when you speak to them. And then it moves up to the head of people analyzing, well, do I know you? Do I know somebody who knows you? Will what you're saying really work for me? And that's where you tell a story of somebody who's a case study that was just like you, and they had the same trouble, and from working with us, they now are happy. And most people think, oh, you have to know, like, and trust me. And I say, no, it's the opposite. You have to first trust them, like them, and then know you before they're going to get a yes.
Interesting. Okay, so out of the three, you said that people, they don't practice, they're confused, so they're not really clear on their value, or arrogant, or maybe unapproachable.
Yes, defensive. Like if somebody asks you a question, you can't be defensive. Let's tap into that a little bit. When someone asks you a question, either during or after your pitch, the best way to handle that is to rephrase the question using active listening techniques to make sure you're actually hearing the question properly. Because if you don't hear the question properly and answer the question a different question, then someone thinks you're avoiding the question and they really don't trust you. And sometimes it's just miscommunication. So it's always a good idea to say, oh, what I heard you asking me is, and then you rephrase it in your own words. Then you answer it, and if you really want bonus points, David, then you go back and say, did that answer your question? To make sure that that person is happy with what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk about, now, if somebody does tend to, I guess, sometimes come off as arrogant, I'm sure they're not intending to be that way. What do you think is creating that, and what can they do to avoid that or stop that?
Well, the irony is insecurity creates arrogance. People who are really confident in who they are don't have to be perfect and don't have to know all the answers. So the more candid you are, and a little bit of vulnerability goes a long way in making you approachable.
And confidence too. Obviously, confidence comes from success and comes from results. So if somebody's getting results, then they can typically be confident. But what if you keep finding someone that's just, they have the best intentions in the world, but it's just not happening for them? What does that person do?
Well, they're either in the wrong job or the wrong message or the wrong market. You have to figure out which of those three, if not all, are happening to cause you to not be successful. And it goes back to your why. Why are you doing this? Is this just a paycheck? Then guess what? Then you're not really going to have passion for it. People buy from people who have passion. If you have a big why, for example, one of our clients, Mallory Dyer, is a former math teacher who created a platform to help low-income students who couldn't afford an expensive calculator, but they could afford a $5 app on their phone to use when they're trying to take a math test. And so her whole motivation, her big why is, I'm helping low-income students pass math so they can graduate. So that's what keeps her going, and that's what people buy more than the app.
Simon Sinek says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And
exactly.
Same exact lines. So let's talk about, partnering up with people or hiring. So look, why would somebody hire, or let me ask you a better question. What should you look for when you hire people or decide which investors to take on as partners?
Right. Well, hiring a good team is number one priority to be successful. And one of the things that's really a great question to look for is when you ask the person a series of questions about who they are, why they want to work there, all that stuff, see if they've done their homework, but then ask them, do you have any questions for me as your potential boss? And one of the things I tell potential job prospects to ask is, what would it look like if I was to exceed your expectations in this job? Man, every time somebody asks that question, they typically get a second interview or hired, because they're showing empathy. They're showing they're the kind of person that goes above and beyond, as opposed to one person who said, well, I would probably say, what are my benefits for working here, right? See the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. One's about you, one's about the other person, about helping somebody.
Yes.
Coming from a place of contribution, as we say at Keller Williams. All right, awesome. So what questions, John, should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Where people can buy my book, that kind of thing. That's on Amazon or any place else. The Successful Pitch, Conversations on Going from Invisible to Investable. And if your listeners want to text me at 66866, the word funding, I will email them a PDF of the 3 mistakes to avoid when pitching for free.
The 3 mistakes to avoid when pitching for free. That's amazing. And I heard a really great question today. And I believe the question was along the lines of, what do I not know about a pitch?
What do you not know about a pitch? The big thing is you don't have to tell everything in the pitch, just enough to get people to say, tell me more. When you intrigue people, their eyebrows literally go up and you know you've hooked them.
Got it. Okay, and the final question, my friend, is on a path to mastery. What do you want our listeners to take from this interview today? That
in order to pull people in with your stories as opposed to pushing people with your sales techniques is the key to success.
Elaborate on that a little bit more.
Sure. Plato said storytellers rule the world, and when you tell people a story, you're pulling them in emotionally. You have to tug on the heartstrings to get people to open the purse strings.
So you're getting some buy-in on those stories.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my friend. Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. And again, how do we get in touch with you?
At John_Livesay, L-I-V as in Victor, E-S-A-Y is my Twitter handle, and johnlivesay.com is my website.
All right, John. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you, and you have a great rest of your day, okay?
You too, David.
Hey, Masters, you guys know how important health and nutrition is to me. I just want to talk to you a little bit about products I use called AdvoCare. I've been using these products for about 1.5 years now, mostly just for energy. They've got a really awesome drink. It's called Spark. If you want to check out anything, I would tell you, go check out the energy drink Spark. That's what I did for, like I said, almost 1.5 years without even trying any of their other products. And then this past January, a bunch of us, January 4th, decided we were going to do the 24-day challenge, which is a 10-day cleanse and then 14 days of just really healthy eating, vitamins, meal replacement, just awesome 24 days just to kind of get yourself on track and get into some right habits. So Richie Ryan did it with us. Guys, he lost, today's February 5th. I think he's at 24 pounds lost since January 4th. Melissa at our office lost 6 pounds. Min at our office lost 5 pounds. Guys, I mean, listen, it's amazing. Regardless, if your goal is losing weight, my goal wasn't losing weight. I did the challenge just so I could experience it. And, I lost a few pounds, but now I put some weight back on because I started using some of the supplements and the protein powder and all the other stuff. So now I've gained about 3 pounds of muscle and just feel awesome. My energy's through the roof. So whether you're looking for energy or you're looking for just wellness, I mean, they've got some amazing green products that I love taking before I go to bed. Or if you're looking for performance, athletic products, we've got the athletic performance products. And then just active, if you're an active adult, maybe getting a little older in the age and you want to just keep everything working the right way and functioning. Listen, Gary Keller said it best. If you don't take care of your body, where are you gonna live? And I just love that. So, hey, I just ask you to check out AdvoCare's products. I'm a distributor, so I'd love to help you, talk to you about your nutrition and health goals. You go to livelongersmarter.com, livelongersmarter.com.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.